Then again he consoled with the fact that he had rescued and saved a bird, and he knew that this would impress anyone at school if it was safe to tell them. Charlie decided to look round the shops. It would give him something to do and also help him dry off his sagging clothes. He found himself in a department store and he marveled at all of the goods on display. He walked past perfume after perfume, and the scent made him a little light-headed, and then he went up the escalator, looking left and right in case he missed something. Unfortunately, he saw something or someone whom he didn't expect to see. It was Bob. Charlie ducked down as Bob struggled to try on a smart jacket. It was unusual seeing Bob in a department store. Charlie ducked down as Bob struggled to try on the jacket. It was strange seeing Bob dressed so well, even if it was a tad too big for him. Maybe he's getting married, thought Charlie hopefully, but inside him he doubted it. He got to the top floor, and when he looked down, he could see Bob and an assistant talking, and he could hear their exchange getting more heated. Trust Bob to begin a quarrel in a department store, thought Charlie, half amused and not a bit surprised. Charlie hurried back down the escalator, and he was relieved to be away from Bob, but when he looked up he saw someone else he didn't expect to see. It was Tinker. Tinker was looking at all of the exotic perfumes on the perfume counter with his girlfriend smiling away. It was as if they were in their own world, their own perfect bubble, he thought. Charlie ducked behind a row of expensive-looking coats, and he decided that it was time to leave. He walked quickly out of the store, looking as if he had something to hide, and he shuddered when the security guard gave him a long, serious stare. As soon as he got outside, he almost regretted it. The dark clouds had multiplied, and heavy rain was bouncing off the pavement. There was only one thing for it, and there was only one place to go. The cinema, he thought, Charlie, and he couldn't wait to get there. Thankfully, when he got outside, there was only an elderly couple in front of him, and their big black umbrella protected him from the worst of the rain. Charlie brought his ticket and he sat down in the darkness, and he was glad to be invisible. Surely no one can bother me in here, he thought confidently. The seat was so comfy that it was difficult for him to stay awake, and he watched the film wash over him as if it was a dream. Charlie didn't care about the plot. He needed a distraction. Thankfully, when he walked home, the rain had stopped and he felt secure under the cover of darkness, and his stomach rumbled, and he wondered what lovely meal his mum would be cooking. He opened the front door and he was surprised by the lack of food smells. He frowned. He didn't want to wait long for his meal. "Mum," he called out, but there was no response. He went into the kitchen, but no pans were bubbling and no kettle was whistling. Strange, he thought, as he pushed the door open in the sitting room, and then he saw it. His mum was laid on the floor with an open book by her side, and she wasn't moving. "Mum," shouted Charlie, but there was only silence. He bent down to look into her beautiful eyes, but they were closed. He could see her chest moving slowly up and down like a disturbed molehill. There was hope, he thought, and in a panic he ran to the phone in the hallway and he dialed for the ambulance with shaking fingers. They seemed to take an eternity, but in reality it was only a few minutes. Charlie found himself winding round the streets with the ambulance blaring and its lights flashing like fireworks. He could see his mum covered in a big red blanket, and he had to admit that he was very scared. He thought of Tinker, but there was no one for him to turn to at that moment, so in desperation he felt in his inside pocket and he pulled out a wrinkled-up copy of his Spider-Man comic, and he let himself sink into its colourful, happy pages, and the wailing sirens and the colourful lights disappeared, and for a few moments he forgot about the tears on his cheeks and the sight of his mum on the stretcher. Hello, viewers. It wasn't long before reality kicked open the doors, and Charlie found himself sitting in the hospital, surrounded by a lot of miserable, unhappy-looking people. A kindly young nurse put her hand on his shoulder and she'd handed him a weak-looking cup of tea. Charlie didn't mind, and he slowly sipped from the plastic cup and hoped it would make him feel better. "Don't worry," the caring nurse said. "Your mum's in good hands. She'll be okay." And she smiled at Charlie as she ruffled his bright ginger hair and gave him a soft, gentle smile. Charlie chose to believe her. He was too scared to think of the alternative. "We've contacted your Uncle Keith," she said, "and he will be here to stay with you and help you." Charlie doubted that. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Charlie thought for a moment, and then he said, "Only for chocolate." "Hello, viewers." The nurse laughed and she walked away, saying, "I'll see what I can do." Charlie watched the hands of the clock moving as if they were covered in webbing, and each second seemed like a minute, and he wondered how his mum was getting on, and he could feel his lip beginning to quiver, but he didn't care. He was startled by a heavy hand on his shoulder. Charlie turned round to see his Uncle Keith standing next to him. Charlie didn't like his uncle. He only turned up when he had gambled all of his money away or that he was lonely at Christmas, and he wanted some free Christmas pudding. His mum called Keith a waster, but Charlie knew that he had to hold his tongue, which came naturally to him, as he was raised to be polite. Keith got a coffee from the machine, and when he came back, he tried to sound concerned about Charlie's mum, but with all of the betting receipts falling out of his pockets and his feet tapping impatiently on the floor, it was impossible for Charlie to believe him. Charlie was frantic with worry, and it was difficult for him to concentrate on anything else. Keith tried to put on a kind face on things, but his mask was already slipping. "I'm hungry," he said. "Is there a fish and chip shop round here?" he asked insensitively. Charlie was amazed that he was thinking about food in such a serious situation. "I think so," he managed to mumble, holding back the tears. "Let's go," said Keith, making a big show of holding hands. Charlie had no choice but to walk out with him. "Don't worry," he said. "Your mum's asleep. She won't know we're gone," he said. Although true, Charlie wanted to stay. He felt that he owned his mum that much. 69, 59. Next page coming up, viewers. I got no viewers. Silence. It was just the way Charlie liked it. Oh my God, where am I? "Fish and chips," said Keith, rubbing his hands together and grinning like a lottery winner. They sat on a park bench, and Charlie ate his chips slowly and with no enthusiasm. He tried to open up about his mum, but every time he did, Keith just turned up the portable radio and he listened intently to the racing results. Charlie sighed a big sigh. He felt trapped, and there was nothing that he could do about it. "Come on, Beauty," Keith shouted as Charlie dropped his chips onto the floor. Charlie could hear the pounding of the hoofs, and the commentator's voice was blaring out so loud in the park that it was almost as if they were at the races. Keith got even louder. "Come on, Beauty," he shouted in between big bites of fish. Then he was on his feet, and the chips were flying everywhere as he waved his arms about in excitement. The commentator's voice grew louder and more excited as the horses thundered over the finish line. Bye for now, viewers. Hope you liked it.